Hi, I'm your State Representative Annette Glenn. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Hometown Heroes. Each episode of Hometown Heroes will feature community leaders, local nonprofits, and others who make a significant positive impact in the 98th District. The place we call home has so much to be proud of. I hope you enjoy learning from our hometown heroes. As always, if you ever have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact my office. Enjoy the show.
Hello, I'm John Perry, and I'm joined by Representative Annette Glenn for Representative Annette Glenn's Hometown Heroes. Representative, nice to see you. Who is your guest for today?
John, it is great to be back, and I am really excited to have Bev here. Bev Wenzel is the Executive Director of The Rock, which is another amazing organization that we have in Midland, but has spread beyond Midland. Welcome, Bev.
Thank you, Representative Glenn. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm glad you're here. I would love to hear the story of how you ended up as Executive Director of The Rock.
And, well, as all stories, sometimes we're further ahead in what we don't know than looking at what we do know. So The Rock first opened as a nonprofit, small organization working with middle school and high school students, and my son started attending there. And he came home one day and he said, "Mom, they're going to close The Rock. You need to do something. You need to save The Rock." Well, I didn't know anything about nonprofits. I didn't know much about teens. I was trying to raise my own and started getting involved a little bit on the fringe. And then all of a sudden, next thing I know, things have evolved into where it was. And that was going on 18 years ago.
18 years.
A long time.
That's pretty amazing. And as you were talking ahead of time, 15, 16 years ago, I had a group of boys that were playing basketball, and I was bringing other boys with them to play basketball. So that was my first experience with The Rock, was the after-school program, where it was a safe place for the kids to come hang out, play basketball, get some help with homework. It's not the same nonprofit it was back then.
We've been on this growth trajectory that's been amazing and exciting, and sometimes we're really just not even quite sure how we got here ourselves. But it's true, we started out as an after-school program and predominantly serving kids in one area. We would have some weekend things and some big, like, Friday night things. And we knew as we were doing it that there was so much more teens needed. So our focus was on middle school and high school students, and always has been. And so many of the services just kind of stop at the end of 5th grade. You know, once you get out of elementary school, our kids start getting more independent and they start launching. And so we knew there was a big deficit there for them. So probably about 10 years ago, we started creating more intentional programs around helping young people thrive and be successful. So that's the world we've moved into now. We still have an after-school program. We have 3 sites in Midland County, and we have about 300 mostly middle school kids a day. And that's a great program where the kids are...
It's a lot of kids.
It's a lot of kids.
It's a lot of kids.
But it's spread out over 3 sites, Jefferson Middle School, Northeast Middle School, and then we're at the Greater Midland Community Center serving Bullock Creek and those middle schools, plus all the high schools. And that goes fantastic. And we've done research around that program and had that program evaluated to make sure it's making a difference in kids' life. So we know all the research says that quality after-school programs really impact our students' overall well-being and achievement and even school attendance. So we know that. But what we decided to do is work in the world of developmental assets. So we'll probably talk a little bit more about those as we go. But we're interested in not just having a hangout place for students, but to have them improve the quality of their life and to build critical skills while they're there.
So tell me what it looked like 18 years ago and what it looks like now.
So 18 years ago, we probably served, we probably had about 5,000 visits a year. And then we probably served, a couple hundred students. Okay.
So same kids.
Yeah, a lot of the same
really
kids.
Involved.
And it was mostly, like you said, it was the after-school program. Now we have, we still have the after-school program. We call that Grounded, and that's, like I said, predominantly serving Midland County. And then we have big events that we do. So our big events before would be a couple hundred kids. Now our big events are 500 or 600 kids.
Wow.
But then our focus area has really gone into that actual skill development. So we have a new program called Discover You. It's not new, it's 10 years old, but it's newly branded as Discovery U.
Okay.
And this last year and this year we served over 5,000 students in that program alone. And Isabella, Bay, and Saginaw, and Midland County. And that program set up to be done in the classrooms. We have great educational partners. And we have coaches and we have curriculum that we've created ourselves. And we go in the classroom and we're usually in there once a week for a semester. And we're going to work with like the same group of kids in the classroom. So it might be first hour social studies, we're in there, and then usually we work with an entire grade. So it might be all the 6th graders or 9th graders or 8th graders, whatever the school wants. And we do these intentional life skill building processes with them.
So what do you include in that?
Everything
Long
we
list.
wished our kids would have had.
So from experience.
So those early days at the Rock taught us a lot. And it really did start as, wow, this is what I wished I would have either done for my children, or hopefully I did do a little bit for them. But it's skills around growth mindset and building resilience and teamwork and cooperation and leadership skills and character strengths. It's a strengths-based program, and it brings in all the good things that are about the young people, and it helps them figure it out for themselves. The topics there's probably about 40 different topics that are included across the programs. But the high emphasis is on certain things, like there are certain skills in there that we know, good problem solving skills.
That's key.
Good goal setting skills, and not just how to set a goal, but how to actually bring it to life.
So principal approaches you and says, we'd like you to come in once a week. It sounds like with 40 weeks, you're going to be there all year. And they're going to say, we would love you to focus on these skills, or is it every year you have a new set? These are the basic foundational skills, and then the next year you build on top of those.
So currently we have 4 programs that we're scaling and that are most commonly used. So we have one program called Creating Me, which is used in middle school. So the student's going to go through that one time in middle school for like 18 weeks. Okay. And those are going to be the topics I mentioned, but a lot more around integrity and honesty and building community and exactly. The programs, actually, the social emotional learning requirements that the state had set aside, I think about 2 years ago now, these programs meet all those requirements.
Great.
So it helps schools to fulfill that expectation, as well as the fact that it's building other things inside there. So the kids are getting along better. It's a good anti-bullying program. Because of a couple things. One is it helps to increase respect for self and others, right? It helps to break down barriers and build community. It helps to build empathy, which is really critical for that.
Lifelong implications there, actually.
Very much so. And then it also says, so when you look at the bullying issues that we have, which we all know don't end at middle school.
Unfortunately.
Exactly. So you look at that, and so much of the focus is on the aggressor. Don't do that. And it's on a lot of adults trying to intervene to stop that. Those are all good things, but they're not the only thing. We know that no matter how hard as parents we try, we are not going to protect our children forever.
Right.
And we can't be there all the time, nor should we, right? They have to find their own. So the programs help focus on each student's self-worth and value, and our kids need to be resilient. They need to, as much as we hate this, be able to take a hit.
So conflict resolution.
Yes.
Which is going to apply not just in a bullying situation, but how about when we're a little more grown up and we're working even at McDonald's? Employees may not communicate in the same manner, so trying to figure out how to resolve that in a respectful way. And then family life. We don't always all get along 24/7. So that sounds like something that would be a life skill that would just, once learned, is going to be applied to lots of ways.
Absolutely. So when you think about the 21st century skills that employers want, they're really around these types of ability to work in a community, to problem solve, higher level thinking, right? They're looking for not as much hard job skills because our job requirements are changing so fast.
Quick.
But employers are really, really looking for our young people's ability to adapt and to remain, to be flexible and resilient in a very fast changing world. So to answer your question, I got off on a trail a little while ago. So then we go into a high school program, which is called Forging Futures, and you would generally do that once in high school. And that program is some of the similar stuff. If you take them all, it's even better, right? If you go through all the programs, it's great. If you go through only one, it's good. It's just you gain from that program. So, but Forging Futures does expand on what you've learned in middle school, and it goes even deeper into relationships. A lot of these skills that our people are learning are Tier 1 mental health interventions.
Great.
So when we really look at issues that we're having with teens in the world today, a lot of the problems could be averted through basic skill building. So when you think about how many of our kids, we get into crisis because we don't know how to handle a failing relationship. Or we get into crisis because we don't know how to solve a problem or set a goal or understand that we can achieve something, or we're afraid to fail. You know, failing's what's got us this far. We really need to learn how to celebrate failure, not be so afraid of failure. So as we teach kids these basic skills, it helps them to be more adaptable and able to manage life, which helps keep them out of crisis.
That's great. Have you found in the 18 years that it's really the same challenges that teens have, or have they evolved in the last 18 years?
I think they've evolved. I think there's core challenges that we had, and that even just raising my kids, we had. But there's a whole new world out there right now with, it's disappointing when everybody beats up on social media, but and technology.
And technology.
Right, technology in general. But there are issues there for our kids, and one of them's like chronic loneliness.
Yes.
I mean, we're getting isolated and inside our own world, and you know, it's safer to interact with that machine than it is people. So that becomes, I think that's elevated our issues. I think that we have gotten into this habit of very, very good intending adults. We don't want to see our kids hurt. And we want to ensure their success. So we kind of help smooth that path out for them, right? And we help them solve problems, and we tell them what to do instead of letting them figure out what to do. So we're seeing a decrease in resiliency in our kids. They're not as resilient as they used to be because, you know, safe waters do not make a good sailor.
Right.
And so it's not, oh, let's have awful things happen to our children. It's not that at all. But it really is. Our kids have to learn to maneuver their own way. And I think, you know, we've kind of headed in a direction that we're maybe stopping that skill from developing.
It's that, the parable of the tree. And the tree with the strongest roots is the one that has to live in windy territory because it's got to stabilize at all times. Some of the best advice I got as a mom was to find a mom mentor who you liked her interaction with her children, and it looked like the kids were on good trajectory. So I chose one, more than one depending on the life of my kids. But one of them told me the story of a child who had decided she was not going to go to prom because there was too much drinking. So then this young lady stays home, and she's kind of sad. And the mom said, so I really, really just wanted to throw her a party and make it better. But that maybe was not the best call. Maybe the best call was to let her realize it's okay to be sad when you make a good choice, and you will be happy tomorrow and next month and whatever you were concerned about happening and not being around. But right now in the moment, it's okay if you're a little bit sad.
It is okay to
and
be sad.
to just have compassion and share that sadness together and then move on.
Yeah.
Wise advice. Very wise advice.
We're so afraid of that. We're just so afraid. And my kids now are adults and on their own. And I think the greatest thing that I get, the greatest joy now, is knowing that they can take a hit, because the world hits them. The world's hard. You know, professionally, the world is hard. And there's so many challenges that you have to face throughout life. And there isn't a magic switch that happens when we get older that helps us do that if we haven't learned and developed those skills along the way. So I think skill building is really a great thing that we can do to serve our kids.
So loneliness. Let's go back to loneliness. Okay. All right. What are you working with the kids on to help them deal with loneliness?
Sure, that's a great question. So if you look at our out of school time programs, our staff, I'm always very proud of them because they work very hard to make sure that all the young people who are in there are engaged and learning how to create those social relationships. I think one thing we tend to do too is, oh, you need friends, you should go make friends. Okay, well, that's awkward, and I might be rejected, and it's really hard to just go make friends if that's not your natural personality. So it's creating opportunity for friendships to come to life. So a lot of times as adults, we know if we're on like a service project where we're volunteering with people, or something happens to cause us to come together. So I think that's one of those opportunities where you can facilitate that versus telling somebody, right? That's
checklist. Go do this.
Checklist. Go do this. Because all of these skills we're trying to build really do come down to pretty basic steps. You know, there's a pretty basic way to make friends, but we don't teach people how to do that. So that's part of it in that program. In the Discover You program, you really see the fact that you're going in and you're building community, and you're teaching kids again how to work together. You're creating those opportunities to do that. You're you're helping young people to evolve themselves to the point where they're comfortable taking a risk. So, you know, I had mentioned, like, we have to make failure okay. A growth mindset, just having our young people realize that I'm going to make mistakes and I can laugh at myself, I can move on, it doesn't define me. And some people tend to be a little more predisposed to avoiding that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? But especially when we're young, life is really all about risk.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, that never stops. It's about risk. And it's about learning through the process and being willing to expand. If we're afraid to lose or afraid to look at things differently, then there's so much opportunity that we miss. We don't get to meet new people. We're afraid of people we don't know or who don't look like us. You know, so by helping them to develop those skills, that helps to affect the loneliness thing. But again, it's not, hey, go make friends and don't be lonely. It's, let's look at the skills you need to go out there. Even good problem solving skills. I mean, if you can say, okay, well, what is the problem? Well, I'm not comfortable because of this and this. What can you do to get comfortable? I can do this. And then how can you, what have you done before that's been similar that you've been successful in? Well, how do you apply that to this? So again, it's skill building, it's guiding, it's facilitating, it's not telling and directing.
So if we've got parents watching today and their children are not currently at a school that's got one of these programs, how would they get involved and get their children to participate in this great program?
Oh, well, that's a good question. It depends on where they're at. So right now we're working on expanding Discover You as far as we can. We're in about 30 different schools in the region.
That's great.
And we are, as I said, scaling it. So what had happened is we wrote our own. We have great data and great outcomes, so we decided we were going to start replicating it and making it available on a larger scale. So parents who are interested should definitely contact us at The Rock. They can contact their schools and see perhaps if their schools have already looking into it.
Okay, great.
And at this age, our kids aren't always great at coming home and telling us what they
That's
did
true.
in school.
That's true. It's a lot of information to share for one day.
Yep. So their student might already be in the program and they might not realize it yet. So in which case, parents getting involved and learning more about positive approaches and basic skill building to help them help their young people thrive, they can reinforce those concepts at home.
Great. So you've mentioned research a couple of times. I would love to have you share what you found research.
Great. So we started out, and I probably shouldn't even admit this, but we just did what we knew was good for kids, right? As I said, what we wanted for our kids. And then an individual come along who's on our board now, Kathy Snyder, and said, do you know what positive psychology is? And I said, no, I've never heard of it. And she said, well, you're doing it. Would you like to know more about it? And so remember, I led in with sometimes it's good you don't know what you don't know. So come to find out, we were paired up pretty much exactly with it. So we started working like with the University of Pennsylvania. We've been a service learning project with them for 3 years and have had a 6-year relationship. And the founder of Positive Psychology, Martin Seligman, that's actually his home base. Okay. So University of Pennsylvania hosts that. So through these service learning projects, we've been able to have the students come in and that through the university to put the science behind our programs and align it. Now what we do is we actually share that program with adults, different parts of that program through professional development.
Great.
And on a broader scale in Midland. And there's so much research behind that. So positive psychology is only about 20 years old, which is about as old as the rock is.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And when we aligned with it, we aligned with that and developmental assets, but it was because it's a strengths-based approach. And the idea was not, too much of our society spends a lot of time on what's wrong and what's broke.
Yes.
So you go to the doctor to get not sick, but that doesn't mean you're healthy.
Correct.
You might go to therapy to get not sad, but that doesn't mean you're happy. And for some reason, we've learned to settle at this neutral point. Well, if life's not awful, then it's okay. But there's so much more than that.
Absolutely.
And this north and neutral thing really helps us to struggle well because there are struggles in life. So I think when you hear like positive psychology, a lot of people think, oh, we're just going to walk around and be positive all the time, and you're just telling people to be happy. Well, no, we're teaching them how to have good well-being and happiness. But it's really around those skills that do help us struggle well. And then that's back to that mental health intervention, right? That says the better I can struggle and the more equipped I am to deal with life. That makes sense?
Then I can take a hit.
I
can take a hit and I can get back up and I can accomplish more. There was a Michael Jordan TV commercial that came out when my boys were not that old, and it led with all of his failures. I failed at this many times. I failed at this many times. I missed this shot this many times. And all so I could get here. And it was just, I just thought that was such a strong message that he was willing to lose all of those times. And it didn't even get into the fact that he didn't initially even make his high school basketball team.
Exactly.
So he could take a hit and then share that message.
Passion goes a long way. And helping our young people find their passion and helping them find the things that they really care about, that they really want to, that they're intrinsically motivated for, which makes everyone else's job easier.
All right. So you've come from a couple hundred children that you have worked with to thousands and large events. What do you see happening next?
I am looking forward to becoming very sustainable in the region to maintain our footprint. We're figuring out how, excuse me, as a society, we've really got to learn how to invest in prevention. And we're in the nonprofit world, and that can be difficult to navigate and maintain good programs when funding can be difficult. So we have a couple goals. One is we want to make sure that we can both maintain our footprint in the Great Lakes Bay region and increase it. So we're working with a couple of different initiatives that are heading us in the same direction, that see the value of the work and want to continue there. We want to reach as many kids as possible because, being in one county or in one region might feel kind of safe, but it's a pretty small world. And our kids grow up and they go other places and they live in other communities. So our vision is really, how can we get the skills to absolutely every young person that we possibly can? So we're going with the Discover You program a bit from the coaches model, which is where we find the coaches, we hire the coaches, we train the coaches, we pay the coaches, and we put them in the classroom, to a train the coach model that can be replicated and scaled, and we're making pretty good headway there.
Wonderful.
We have a positive alternative to school suspension program that I didn't mention yet.
Great.
And that is really a cutting edge program around taking the lost time of school suspension, which we know schools sometimes have to suspend kids. That's just reality. It doesn't make schools bad, but sometimes kids have to be removed from school. But we also know when we remove kids from school, there's research, and Judge Allen did a lot of work around this, the school to prison pipeline, which is basically our prisons are filled with people who started out down that path around school suspension. And so what we did is we took the basic skills that we've discussed here today, and we've helped to put them into a model where kids can come to us when they get suspended from school, suspended or expelled, and then through that we build skills with them. So we sit down and we say, well, what are your strengths? What's going for you? How are you amazing? And look at how can you consider change and move into change, and then okay, what got you here? What's a plan to correct that? And that also pulls in the state's priorities around restorative justice and restorative practices for education.
That's wonderful.
So that's become really neat.
All right, Bev, what else would you like to share with us?
We are moving into post-secondary work. We have an issue in our state around college attainment and completion, and a lot of that is around skills that are very similar with a couple of nuances. So we're working in that area as well.
Well, I am so excited to have you here. I'm excited for the work you do. Any big fundraisers coming up we need to be aware of?
We are always fundraising. We have our big event in March, so we're heading towards that event right now. And that's our biggest individual donation event. And that goes a long way. That's probably about 10 to 12% of our operating budget. And that goes a long way to help keep these programs going for our young people.
Bev, thank you for being here, and thanks what you do to change these children's lives.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us.